So, all right, I'm gonna share my. Hold on, let me get my pen ready. I'm gonna need that. Uh, here we go. Okay, now I'm ready. I'm gonna share my screen with you. We're gonna start going through these together. We're just gonna talk about them together as we go along. All right. So the first question in your text is for each of the following pairs of goods, which would you expect to have a more elastic demand and why? Um, which one is it easier to walk away from the sale? Or which one do you not need to buy as much when the price goes up? Um, so, Hala, I'm going to ask you to start us off. What do you think would have a more elastic demand? Required textbooks or mystery novels?
Mystery novels.
Very good. And that is correct. And it's because we don't need to buy them, right? We don't need to buy them. We need to buy a required textbook if we want to pass our class. You know, in college, you'll be shocked at how much textbooks cost. It's crazy. Um, and you know, there's lots of substitutes. All right, and there's this in the category of an entertainment book. There's lots of other types of books we can buy for entertainment. All right. Let's see. Nigeli. Um, so before I go on, Nigeli. So elastic means we're more easy to do without it. All right. Which one of these, Nigeli, do you think would have a more elastic demand? Beethoven recordings or classical music recordings in general?
You said we can't live without it?
Yeah, which one's easier to walk away from? Beethoven recordings or classical music recordings in general?
Um, Beethoven?
Right, because if you do like classical music, you know, if you had to give up Beethoven, there's still plenty of other classical music composers you can listen to. You can listen to Mozart, and the list goes on and on. There's plenty of other classical music composers. But if you give up classical music in general, that you know, if you really love classical music, you're giving up a whole category of music that you may enjoy. So we'll say Beethoven because there are plenty of other classical music composers we can listen to. Whose music we can listen to because Beethoven didn't record music, he just wrote the music and other people played it. All right, let's see. Let's move on. Amanda, what do you think has a more elastic demand? Heating oil during the next 6 months or heating oil during the next 5 years?
What is heating oil?
Okay, so um, where you live, your heat is either coming from oil. If you see a big oil truck pull up to your house and they connect you know, a big hose to the side of your house and fill up your oil tank, you know, every couple of months, then you're getting oil. If you don't see anything like that, you probably either getting your heat from natural gas or possibly electric heat. But heating oil, some people heat their houses um, with heating oil. Um, and that's how they get their
Mr.
heat.
Why can I answer?
Yeah. Well, hold on. Give Amanda a chance.
Yeah, I think people would give up the heating oil for the next 6 months to keep the next 5 years. I don't know.
Okay. How are you seeing it, Travion?
I mean, personally, I think it'd be more elastic if um if like heating oil during the next 5 years. Personally, I,
All right. So because, and it's a hard one to understand, but let me phrase it a little bit differently. If if your house is heated by heating oil, right? We're in the middle of the winter. Um, could you? Is it easy for you to switch to natural gas in the next 6 months? Well, you would have to have somebody come to your house and connect the natural gas pipeline to your house. All right, which is a big production, and they'd have to install a gas meter and an entirely different you know fittings to your furnace and all that. So um, it's a big production, and you can't necessarily call today and have it done this month, right? It's going to take time. Um, so if your house requires heating oil, it's almost impossible for you to give it up during the next 6 months unless you're going to, just huddle around the fireplace or an electric heater. It's really hard to give up your heat in your house in the winter, right? I mean, you freeze to death, right? Um, but over the next 5 years, if you knew the price of heating oil was going to go up and up and up, you have a 5 year window, you can start planning for switching over, converting to natural gas. So the answer is over the next 5 years, but the bigger question is, do people understand my explanation? Do people understand that, or did I not do a good job of explaining that?
I think you did pretty well.
Okay, and I'll put it in writing because it's very difficult to convert to a different type of heat in the short term, and much more realistic over a long period of time. All right, and let's go to Shania. Shania, what do you think would have a more elastic demand, root beer or water? Which one's easier to do without? Okay. All right, I see it in the chat. Very good, root beer. Yeah, root beer, and it's really because it's a luxury. It's not a necessity. Some people don't like it at all. All right, we do need to drink water, and even if you're just drinking tap water, somebody's paying for it. You've got the MWRA is providing water to your house in Boston, and it's quite pricey. All right, so that's just some basic concept questions. If we say demand for something is elastic, it means it's easy to do without it. All right. All right. Now we're going to get into some math. All right. Suppose that business travelers and vacationers have the following demand for airline tickets from New York to Boston. All right. There's two basic tables here. There's numbers for business travelers, and there's numbers for vacationers. All right. So here's what we're looking at for business travelers, vacationers. We're looking at these prices and these quantity demanded. I'm going to do the business travelers, and then I'm going to pause, ask you to open up your document and do the same calculations for vacationers. All right, as the price of tickets rises from $200 to $250, what is the price elasticity of demand for business travelers and vacationers? And it asks us to use the midpoint method. All right, so I'm looking at these numbers. And every type of elasticity that we've talked about that is defined in economics, the definition is percent change in quantity is always on top. So we're going to look at quantity first. All right, and you're going to need to grab a pencil and paper and a calculator, and I'll give you time for this, but just watch what I'm doing first, all right? So quantity is changed by 100. All right, if I subtract these two numbers, I get 100. All right, and we're going to compare it to not where we started like a mathematician would. We're going to compare it to the midpoint. All right, some of you can answer this without thinking about it. What's halfway between 2000 and 1900?
50.
1950. Good. All right, now if you needed to, you could add them up. You could do 2000 plus 1900, equals 3900, and then 3900 divided by 2. If you take the average of two numbers, that's finding the midpoint. All right, and then you're going to grab a calculator, or I'm going to grab a calculator. 100 out of 1950, let's use two decimal places, it's about 0.05. So that's a 5% decrease if we're reading it top to bottom. But with demand, we don't worry about the sign. All right, we just, unless it's cross price, we're comparing two products, the price of one product and quantity of another one, we don't worry about the sign. We just say we changed by 100 and we're comparing it to the midpoint. Now, price changed by $50. And what's halfway between 200 and 250? Anybody?
275.
225. All right. They generally try to keep the numbers easy. And tomorrow's classwork, you'll see I kept the numbers super easy to figure it out. But if you need to, just add them up. You'll say 200 plus 250 is 450. 450 divided by 2 gives you that number 225. But hopefully, most of you will be able to do that in your head. 50 divided by 225 comes out to 0.22. So I don't need to see any of that on your Google Doc. Here's what I do want to see on your Google Doc. After vacationers, you're going to, you don't have to use red like me, but I'm going to use red. It's 0.05. This is the only work you have to show me. Divided by 0.22 equals, and if you don't own a calculator, just Google online calculator. You'll find a million of them, and that gives you 0.227. We'll call it 0.22. All right. Demand is inelastic for business travelers. All right, because that number is less than 1. All right, I want you to pause. All right, let's give you 5 minutes for this, and if people tell me they need more, I'll give you more time. Pause, open up your classwork, just do the vacationers. Do the same thing that I did, but you're going to be using these numbers for change in quantity instead of these numbers. Okay, you're going to be using, you can recycle my work here on the percent change in price, but you're going to do a different percent change in quantity. And then you're going to give me a formula just like this, what divided by 0.22 and what's your final answer. All right, so take 5 minutes and work on that, and check in with you in 5 minutes and see where you're at. And again, don't worry about copying anything that I already typed. I'll provide that for you. Just do the vacationers.
Mister,
Yes.
said the sign don't matter, so the final answer doesn't have to be a negative. It can't be a negative.
Correct. I mean, technically, it's always negative, which is why we don't pay attention to it. Quantity demanded always goes in the opposite direction from price. If price increases, quantity demanded decreases, and vice versa. So,
Okay.
okay. The only two where we care about the signs are the cross price elasticity of demand and the income elasticity of demand.
Okay.
And for those of you that are already have an answer, I'll tell you you're correct. If you get a number that's still smaller than 1, but bigger than 0.22. And no, it's not 1.27. Your 0.22 should be on the bottom.
That's what it is on the bottom.
Okay, so what did you do for your so what numbers did you have for your yeah, you know, hold on. I'm sorry. My fault. I did it wrong. Yes, it is. Yes, it is 1.27. It should be bigger than 1. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Do I get extra credit?
you were right on everything today. I was actually in the process of adding. You had +5 from before Christmas, and now you got +7 on your next test.
Cool. Thank you.
No, all right, you guys know the answer is 1.27. Show me how did it get what divided by 0.22. All right, that's the number I want to see in your paper. Well, I want to see this whole thing. Something divided by 0.22 equals 1.27. And if you had a calculator ready to go, I know you're already done, but I'm just giving a little bit of time for people that had to run and get a pencil and paper and a calculator and so forth. Yes, Risa, you are correct. Nice job. And I appreciate you not putting it out to the whole group. It just gives me a better feel for how people understand it. All right, does anybody need me to wait before we move on? It's been 5 minutes, but I'll give you a couple more if anybody needs it. Going. All right. Hold on. Something in the chat. Yes. So okay. So fair enough. Jada, can I ask you how much did the quantity change by? What did quantity?
200.
200. Good. And what's halfway between 600 and 800?
Wait, you said what?
What's halfway between 600 and 800? If you're moving from.
Isn't it 200?
Okay, well that's the distance, right?
Oh.
So where are you? If you let's say you're moving from 800 to 600, you made it halfway. Where are you? What number are you at?
700?
Exactly, 700. All right. So if you haven't already, just take a minute, calculate that 200 divided by 700, and then that's your number divided by 0.22. And if you got that correct, you should get 1.27. I'll give you a minute to do that. All right. Were you able to get that number, Jada? 1.27.
I got like 0.28.
Yes. Yep. Yep. And then when you do 0.28 divided by 0.22, that's where you get the 1.27. All right, and that's what I want to see you write on the line down there. 0.28 divided by 0.22 equals 1.27. Okay. All right. So, and while you're doing that, I'm going to keep talking. So, for business travelers, the demand for airline tickets was inelastic, and for vacationers, the demand was greater than 1. The elasticity of demand was greater than 1. It's elastic. Who have I not called on yet? Patrick, do you think you might be able to explain why vacationers might have an elastic demand and business travelers might have an inelastic demand for airline tickets?
I think because I mean, are you talking about it in a way like where we're connecting about it like with real life?
Yes. Yes.
I don't know if this answers the question because I'm still trying to understand everything.
Yeah. Let's see.
But I don't know. Yeah, definitely the vacationers should have a different elasticity, right?
Right, but why? Can you explain why? Why demand
Because
is?
they're going on vacation.
Yep, you're warm. Why are vacationers more willing to give up the airline tickets when the price goes up, and business travelers are less willing to give up the tickets when the price goes up?
Because business travelers are going for a certain reason for business and it's important, and then vacation is just
Exactly. It's a necessity for
yeah.
business. Exactly. Business travelers
Yeah.
need to buy the tickets, and vacationers don't, and that's exactly the
Yeah,
answer.
you always put it off for later. Schedule another
That's
day.
right. That's right. Or maybe rent an RV or something like that, or take a bus.
Yeah, exactly.
But business travelers need to be there, tomorrow, or 2 days from now. Perfect. All right. So let's let me erase this math here. And let's move on. I see something in the chat. Good. All right. Good. All right. Let's keep on going. All right. So here's another one. Demand schedule for CDs. I don't think anybody buys CDs anymore, but when this book was published, that was how people still got their music for the most part. So another exercise, same type of idea. Let's use the midpoint, but this is income elasticity. All right. So how does our income affect how many CDs we're going to buy? All right. But the same idea. Quantity is always going to be on top. All right. All right. Let's see. And change in income is going to be on the bottom. So if the price, all right. So actually, I'm sorry, we're confusing two issues here. We're going to do income elasticity. That's what's confusing me. We're going to do price elasticity. So if my income is $10,000 and the price changes from $8 to $10, what's the price elasticity of demand? So first of all, let's narrow it down to what numbers we're looking at. $8 to $10, and I'm looking under my income is $10,000 a year, and I don't even think when the book was published, making $10,000 a year could get you a roof over your head. Not even back then. But anyways, let's just go with these numbers. All right, they're trying to give us some easy numbers to look at. So percent change in quantity. Well, quantity changed by 8. All right, now this one might be a little bit tougher, but can anybody do this in their head? What's halfway between 40 and 32? And a nice way to think of it is if the distance is 8, 4 is halfway. What's 4 up from 32 or 4 down from 40? Anybody? What's halfway between 40 and 32? Yes, 36. Okay. But again, if you need to, you can just add them up. 40 plus 32 is 72. 72 divided by 2 is 36. All right. But again, if you didn't follow me, the distance is 8. Most of us can see that in our head. And so if you cut that in half, halfway to 8 is 4. So if I just do 32 plus 4, that's halfway. Or 40 minus 4, that's halfway. But 8 out of 36 is 0.22. That's percent change in quantity. Now let's look at percent change in price. From $8 to $10, that's a change in price of $2. And I compare it to the midpoint. What's halfway between 8 and 10? 9 is. And 2/9 happens to also be 0.22. All right. In fact, you can see if you divide 8 and 36 by 4, you get 2/9. So anyways, my price elasticity of demand for the people who earn $10,000 a year, when CDs change in price from $8 to $10 or vice versa, is going to be 0.22 divided by 0.22 equals 1. It's unit.
Mr. KG,
Say,
you have to slow down a little bit.
slow down?
Scroll down.
Scroll down. Okay, that's interesting. Okay. How's that?
Yeah, it's better.
Okay. It's 0.22 divided by 0.22, which is 1. So it's unit elastic. All right. What I'd like to see you do now is take 5 minutes, and hopefully we won't need 5 minutes, but I'll give you 5 minutes. I want you to do the same thing. The price is going from $8 to $10, but quantity is going to change from 50 to 45 for the people who earn $12,000 a year. All right, you already have the bottom number. You know it's going to be something divided by 0.22, but figure out the something. And here's where you might want to take out a calculator to calculate the midpoint. Do 50 plus 45. That's 95. 95 divided by 2 is going to be your halfway point. Maybe some of you can figure it out without doing that, but let's take 5 minutes and try that out. Yes, that is your hold on. No, it's 47.5 is your halfway point. The 5 is good, Kiana. But 22.5 is not between 50 and 45. It's 47.5.
Mister, am I right? Mister?
Yep, let me take a look. Did you put it in the chat?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, you are correct. Amanda, you're a little bit too high. So this is our first day. The second one, Jada, 0.10. Maybe a minute. Let me take a look. No, yeah, no, you shouldn't have been that high, Amanda. So you should have, to do percent change in yes, Miguel. Yeah, percent change in quantity demanded. Quantity demanded changed by 5, and you should have gotten 47.5 for the halfway between the average, basically, of 50 and 45. That's the midpoint. All right. Add them up and divide by 2. 50 plus 45, then divide by 2. And then that's your answer. You put that here, and you should get 0.45. Yeah, and if you kept everything exact, Amanda, without rounding, you'd get a little bit higher than 0.45, but not as high as you came up with. Hopefully you were able to figure out what happened. Nice. Oh, good. All right. Does anybody want me to wait up? If you don't have an answer, please let me know, and I'll wait for you. Otherwise, let's move on. Anybody? Going. All right. Hopefully that's a good sign. It seems like people are getting these from the comments. All right. So now we're going to look at this same table, and we're going to calculate. Now the price is going to be fixed at $12, but we're going to calculate income elasticity of demand. So if all of a sudden I make $2,000 more a year, my income changes from $10,000 to $12,000, and the price is fixed at 12. What's my income elasticity of demand? All right, so I'm looking at this row right here. I'm looking at this row. The price is $12. What happens if I make more money? Quantity is always on top. Change in quantity. When I went from making $10,000 a year to $12,000 a year, I went from buying 24 CDs a year to 30. So I bought 6 more CDs, and now we want to pay attention when I'm reading it from left to right. Quantity increased. All right, so now I want to start paying attention to signs. All right, by 6 CDs, and what's halfway between 24 and 27? I'm sorry, 24 and 30. I kind of gave away the answer. It's 27. All right, and that's the same as 2/9. That's 0.22. So my my quantity demanded increased by 22% using the midpoint method. All right. What happened to my income? My income increased by $2,000. And what's halfway between $10,000 and $11,000?
You just said you got
Yeah, keep doing
11,000.
it. Yeah, what's halfway between 10,000 and 12,000? It's 11,000. All right, and that's 2/11ths. That's 0.18. All right, so I'm going to scroll down so you can see. So it's going to be 0.22 divided by 0.18. And by the way, they both increase. They're both positive, so I know this is a normal good. If I'm buying more when I make more money, it's a normal good. All right, so I'm going to write 0.22 divided by 0.18. And let's see. That's going to give me...
That's 1.22.
Very good, 1.22. Okay. Now you're going to do the same thing for the price is $16. That's only so you're going to be using the same numbers for income. Your income is still going from $10,000 to $12,000. So you're going to still reuse this number, but now the price is $16, right? Was it 16? I already forgot. That's what happens when you get old. Yep. So now the price is $16. So now you're going to be looking at these numbers for quantity. All right, so take 5 minutes and try that out. What's your income elasticity of demand when your income increases from $10,000 to $12,000, assuming the price of CDs is $16 a piece? No, Travion. I'm pretty confident. So, what did you get for percent change in quantity, Travion? What did you get?
Percent change in quantity.
Yeah.
I got percent change in quantity. I forgot the percent. I did it straight up 4.
Okay.
How do I do that again?
Well, so quantity changed by 4, right? You went from 8 to 12, from buying 8 CDs to 12 CDs a year. And what's the midpoint of 8 and 12? What's halfway between 8 and 12?
10.
10. So 4/10.
That's 0.4.
You again, Travion. You are correct again.
Come on.
Oh my God, what's wrong with me here? Oh my God. So sorry. Gosh. Screwed up. Hit the wrong button. Yeah, 2.22 is correct. I'm sorry. Man, you're gonna have to not take the test in a minute. You got 9 free points. Right.
Wow. When's the next test?
Probably towards the end of next week.
Oh.
I mean, tomorrow. So tomorrow, what we're gonna do, for anybody that's still finishing up, I'll just kind of let you know. Tomorrow, I made a video. I gave you a good set of problems that covers just about every type of calculation and the main types of questions that people could ask you. And I made a video. I do number 1. You pause the video. You do number 1 on your problem set. Similar to what we're doing today. I do number 2. You pause the video. You do number 2. All right. There's 10 problems. And then if you feel comfortable with that, you're already at a point where you can pass the test. All right. And then next week, if that was bad, if I got, people had a lot of trouble with it, we'll do something similar again on Monday. But by Tuesday at the latest, we'll start going through some of the textbooks, publishers' questions. We'll throw in a day of AP questions so you can see what those look like. So we'll probably lean towards having the test Thursday or Friday next week, depending on how quickly people are responding to this. All right, so Travion was correct. The answer is 2.22. Does anybody need a minute to finish getting that, or does anybody have a question on how we got that? If you got that too, you're doing great for your first time doing this.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So I got 4/10.4, but what do I do with that number afterwards?
Okay, so and then you're going to divide it by 0.18 because your income changed by 18% according to the midpoint calculation.
All right, then yeah, I got 2.22. Thank you.
Beautiful. Does anybody else need a minute? If you do, I'll give you a minute. Otherwise, we'll wrap this up and finish the last problems. Okay, let's wrap this up then. Let's go and yep, should have got 2.22 here. Here's an interesting set of questions. Let's talk about these together. Emily has decided to spend 1/3 of her income on clothing. All right. What's her income elasticity of clothing demand? All right. So she's always spending 1/3 of her income. Right. So if her income increases by 20%, she's going to buy 20% more clothing. Does that make sense? Or would anybody like some numbers on that?
I can understand that.
Would anybody like to put some numbers on that? Basically, she's always spending 1/3 of her income on clothes. But yeah, let's put some numbers on it. Let's make it some easy numbers too. Let's say she spends. Let's say she earns. Let's say she's a high school student and she earns $3,000 a year. All right, and she spends 1/3 of that on clothing. She's going to spend $1,000 on clothes. All right. Well, all right. Now let's say she makes she doubles her income, right? Just to keep the numbers kind of easy to deal with, right? Now all of a sudden she's earning twice as much per hour. She just got made manager or whatever, wherever she works part time. $6,000 income. She's going to spend 1/3 of that. Now she's spending $2,000 on clothes each year. All right. So even though we don't have quantity, quantity is directly proportional to the price. So the spending. So we can use the spending as quantity because if the price of clothes is fixed, the quantity is proportional to the price. So they increase in the same proportions. So spending on clothing has increased by $1,000, and halfway between 1,000 and 2,000 is 1,500, and that's exactly 2/3. That's 0.666. Her income has increased by $3,000. Halfway between 3,000 and 6,000 is 4,500, and that's also 2/3. That's 0.66. So if she's always spending a fixed amount of her income on clothing, her spending is going to increase proportionally with her income. So her income elasticity of clothing is 1, and it's unit elastic. If she makes 20% more money, she's going to be spending 20% more money on clothes. If she makes 50% more money in her income, she's going to be buying 50% more clothes.